Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear is an introduction I've used to this podcast time and time again in recent times. It may prove a lack of imaginativity on my part, even if imaginativity is a word which I don't think it is. I'm Will Pugh. I'm joined by James Jones to talk about yet another West Ham defeat and to think or try and think of another way of swerving or avoiding the Moyes in, Moyes out conversation, because frankly, being a West Ham supporter at the moment is exhausting, draining, boring, and rubbish. Moyes out banner in the away end at the City ground. We'll have a bit of a chat about that. Mikel Antonio's heroic return from injury just served up a load of Mikel Antonio-esque things, really. Calvin Phillips, probably in no surprise to anyone, certainly in no surprise to me, turns out wasn't the answer to our January concerns. Also looks pretty out and lacking in match sharpness. He gets sent off. The malaise continues. James Jones and many thousands of others still looking for a new manager. I'm just sort of wishing there was a little bit more patience among the fans, or a little bit more of just like the old days, really, when fans used to get behind West Ham, even in periods of being rubbish. And I also really wish the board would come out and make a decision one way or the other and announce whatever that decision may be to the fans about David Moyes and his future, because either way, I feel it'd give a little bit more stability to the end of the season and perhaps cut down on some of the moaning and groaning and sniping among fellow West Ham supporters. James Jones, delighted to see your face again, as I always am. Win, lose or draw. Seeing your little mug pop up on the screen in front of me always
little
fills
mug.
me with...
Nice. Thanks.
Always fills me with joy. I was reminiscing today, James, with frankly a heavy heart about the old days when this podcast was started out on its journey and was a live radio show called the West Ham Fan Show on Love Sport Radio in Southwark in London, broadcast to millions up and down the country. Not quite certain millions tuned into the West Ham Fan Show, but tens of thousands surely did. And I used to really like it, James. It was an occasion, wasn't it? We used to meet up on a Tuesday night, go and have a couple of beers in the Doggett's Coat and Badge, or whatever that weird pub's called on Blackfriars Bridge, have a few pints in there before, just liven us, warm us up a bit, do the show, an hour and a half, 2 hours long, whatever it was, moan or celebrate West Ham, and then usually go in for a couple more pints afterwards, probably a few too many, for a Monday or a Tuesday night with work the next day. 5 years or so later, we're doing the podcast, James, and I do miss those days. I miss seeing you in person. And I don't know, it felt like it had a bit more romance to it. And frankly, James, we also had a host then who was posing the questions. And there was less pressure on me to try and think of creative ways of dressing up another West Ham defeat. I don't know what to say, really. I'm pretty disengaged from it all at the moment. I don't like it, really. I just don't like it. I don't like how it's all going. It's the same sort of stuff, isn't it, really? And it just feels like the club need to act one way or the other. Right, it's at the stage now. The club need to act. It's been, no wins in 8 games. Haven't scored for the last 3, conceded 11, haven't won since that great win at Arsenal on December the 28th, no wins in 2024 out of the FA Cup. There are some good things in there, but they're buried, and quite frankly, it feels a little bit futile, me bringing them up anymore to anyone, because I'm not really that engaged in it either. Nottingham Forest, well, one thing we will be united on, James, me and you this week, is that Nottingham Forest game was rubbish, like properly rubbish.
Where do I start? Well,
just end
the
podcast there.
Yeah. West Ham are rubbish.
Yeah, that game was rubbish.
See you next week. I didn't watch the game. I was enjoying myself in Felixstowe, which was a good laugh.
How does one enjoy themselves in Felixstowe?
Well, they got a nice beachfront and lots of arcades and stuff. I was there for my nephew's 7th birthday. We had a little day out then there.
Lovely.
But it was good until we started getting the goals come in, which is not so fun. But so yeah, I didn't watch it, and having seen the result, I was like, well, I'm going to refuse to even watch the highlights. And then you're flicking through Twitter, and I've seen the Calvin Phillips, the 2 yellow cards. I've seen Michael Antonio do a Michael Antonio 1-on-1 with the keeper and the defender. And that's what I've really seen, and that's what I really care to see, because, like you just said, I'm just bored of it. I don't really know. I saw this coming. I know many other fans did. I said it months ago when we were winning last-minute winners against Burnley and Forest and Bacca Topola, and you're going, well, we're winning games, James. Well, what are you moaning about? And I could see it coming. I was like, this is not sustainable. We're not playing well. We're grinding out results against teams that we shouldn't be grinding out. We should just be beating them comfortably with the squad that we've got. You're all right about it. That's absolutely fine, because it's a results business, they say. And then it all goes to pot as I saw it coming, and here we are. Like the business in January was a joke. And here we are going, well, we're probably this weekend, where before we played Brentford on Monday, we're just likely we would have dropped out of the top 10. 6 weeks ago, we were top 6 and one went away from building a gap of 5 points from 8th. And going,
in fairness, you weren't happy then either, but yeah, I'll take your point.
I wasn't, because, I mean, on the back of beating Man United and Arsenal, I was like, oh, maybe we've turned a corner. Even after the Brighton game, I thought wasn't a terrible result, wasn't a great performance, wasn't a terrible result. And then the whole Bristol
I
City,
was pretty happy with that. I was just like, that's one more on the pile. Wouldn't expect it to win that, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think the performance wasn't great. Which kind of made people think, well, that was an opportunity missed and all that. But the Bristol City thing wasn't great, and then since then it's just been
Sheffield United and Bournemouth were bad, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, like I was doing just having a little look at some of my stats, and in 2023 calendar year, we only found to score 54 games, only found to score 7 times. We were good. We were good.
In all comps?
In all comps, only failed to score 7 times out of like 53 or something like
that. Right.
And it's now the 19th of February.
There already, aren't we? Yeah,
19th of February, out of 8 games, we failed to score 5 times. 5 times. And okay, Kudos hasn't been there for a few of the first 3 or 4 games of the year. But Jared Bowen, who he's even stopped scoring. We've just got nothing. We've got nothing. And I didn't expect us to get anything at the City Ground at the weekend. I did expect probably a better performance. As I said, I didn't watch it, but I've heard that the performance was as bad as it has been. So yeah, it was coming. We have to address the elephant in the room. I know we spoke about last week. The elephant is still in the room, and I've got to do something about it. I've got to do something about it. It's getting silly. When the moment fans start unfurling banners, and whether you think that's a right or wrong thing to do, the moment the fans start unfurling banners saying Moyes out, that's when the club need to start going, right, okay, well, we need to make a decision here, one way or the other.
Oh yeah, definitely. That I agree with you there wholeheartedly.
That should have been. I mean, the catalyst was the moment we got knocked out against Bristol City in the cup. That should have been the catalyst. Going, well, hang on, this ain't right. Something's not right here.
But
and then the results that come after it. Okay, well, this isn't getting any better. This is getting worse. And for some reason, they're not doing anything about it. And the moment the fans start doing that, that's got to be your catalyst to go, right, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We need to do something. The fans aren't happy. The fans are angry. We need to do something about it. And for some reason, I know for the very reason that it's West Ham United and the board and the ownership that it is right now, they won't. I'd be very surprised if they do. And here we are, 7 or 8 months after winning our first silverware since 1980, and now we're sitting there like moaning, and just a little bit silly, really. It shouldn't have got to this point.
No. I am of the opinion that an element of the it's hard to sum up a fan base. You know what? There's so much nuance in all this. There really is, and I do think that there's lots of like either willful or inadvertent ignorance of some very, very important factors in all this. I think we're not a patient fan base. I don't want to generalize, but you know, there are elements of the fan base who aren't, but any sort of, you know, patience that, you know, compare us to a Brighton, for example, right? Any patience that, you know, perhaps Graham Potter was afforded in bleak spells in Brighton because he was trying to build something. We aren't that as a fan base. No one, be it West Ham fans or neutral, would sum us up as a patient fan base. I think when you've got as significant a portion of your fan base as we have who are impatient, I think that makes much louder noise than any patience does. I think the patience gets overridden by having a loud, I don't want to say majority, but it's not a minority either, a sizable, like dissenting fan base. And let's be honest, we've always had that forever, right? It's due partly to the sort of social makeup of the fan base and, you know, the types of lives people lead, places where they're from, typically, blah, blah, blah. And so I do think there's an element of, and I think that's what I'm just a bit sort of, that's why I'm not enjoying it at the moment, because there isn't, and that's why I want the board to do something one with the other, because I'm sure you'd agree, right? If the one way to unify the fan base at the moment would be to go, I'm not saying everyone would agree with the decision, but to do something to stop letting the indecision roll on and go, you know what, it's time. So we've decided we are going to make a change in the summer and we're going to go in a new direction because the on-field as in the results only success isn't worth it for us anymore. A large section of the fans are clearly unhappy, want something new. You know, we're in this position, or similar position before we took Pellegrini on, and the board go, right, so yeah, we're listening. We think we've leveled up a bit. We're going to take the risk. So from now until the end of the season, you know, we want you to get behind David Moyes in the team and see where that takes us one last time, because it technically could still see us finish in the top six. It could still, yeah, we're not going to win the Europa League, but we could go deep in the Europa League again, and sort of, you know, let's sort of end on a high, and we'll give him the hero's welcome, hero's exit that he deserves. Or you go, right, that's enough of this instability. We hear what you're saying, but frankly, you know, like, as providing we finish in the top half this season and, yeah, do as well as we can in the Europa League, whatever that looks like, luck of the draw. We like what David's doing here. This is the club that we want it to be, and the success means more to us than that. And we're not willing to risk another Manuel Pellegrini situation again. This is what we're doing, you know, and sort of, you know, lump it, whichever side of the argument you fall on. This is what you've got to contend with. You know, if you want to renew your season ticket or don't want to next year, fine, fair enough. But this is what we're doing. This is where we're taking the club. It's just that's not happening. There's
no long-term vision. No long-term. It's a very short-termism type of mentality that we're now into the final few months of a manager's contract, and it's painfully obvious that the club have got no idea what they want to do next.
Absolutely
And
none. Yeah.
for me, that's probably the most unforgivable thing. The strides that this club's made over the last 4 years, the progress that we've made under David Moyes has been beyond our wildest dreams. You know, when we were sitting in that studio in Suffolk, and if someone had said to us while we're sitting in that studio on a Tuesday night in Suffolk, going, in 5 years' time, you'd have won a European trophy, you'd have finished in the top 7 twice, you'd have been in Europe 3 years running, you won a European group 3 years running. We would have gone, pull the other one, how many beers you had? And here we are. So the improvements that we've made, that should have been like, okay, right, well, we don't want to mess this up. So now we need to know, okay, well, if this goes pear-shaped, which is likely to do at some point, we need to have a backup. We need to know exactly what we're going to do. The moment this goes to the point where we're going, right, okay, well, he's taken us as far as he can take us now. We know what the next step is. We're thinking 1, 2, 3 steps ahead. We know where we're going. Clearly, they're not doing that, and that's a problem.
No. I think it's a shame. If I'm honest, I think it's unsustainable now. The mood among the fans, I think it's unsustainable that he goes on. You know, it just, you know what? But I don't know. And if you're in the boardroom at the moment, right, feeling all this, and they'll know, they'll know what's going on among the supporters and among the fans. If you're in the boardroom right now, it is tough because what'll happen? Like what we saw, what happened with Pellegrini, right?
Yeah.
The thing that does annoy me, and one of those sort of unsaid things that I think keeps getting ignored, is the idea that all of these Moyes out brigade. I genuinely don't sort of tie you with this brush. Well, but generally, right, all of the Moyes out brigade will have no the patience required. That they won't be the ones like calming everyone down if we lose a few games or go on a dodgy run under this new manager with this new sort of foresight or whatever. A, there's no guarantee it'll work. B, the chance of it working overnight / immediately, namely because of the type of squad we've got, which is set up to play Moyes ball, plus the required adequate level of backroom running of West Ham. Let's be honest, mate. West Ham, the structure of West Ham, I had this analogy the other day, right? If you ranked every team in the Premier League based on club setup, right? Be above the dugout, right up to the top. If you ranked West Ham, we'd be bottom half, right? Combine that with our budget, I think we've got the 9th biggest budget in the league. So if you average the two, if you ranked everyone just on club structure, we'd be bottom half, plus club structure combined with budget, we'd still end up, like mid-table at best with all that, probably like 12th, 13th, whatever. Now, the idea that the likelihood of results being anywhere near where they have been, where the football's better, I think it's my personal opinion, right? People disagree, so it's fine. I think it's really low. So that a lot of the reason why I take the views that I have so frequently is because that, as much as, I sort of wish we were a bit more respectful towards David Moyes, wish we showed a bit more patience, and wish we got behind the team in darker times like we used to. But, the stadium moves part of that as well. There's loads of nuance to that. But I just feel, I don't think it will go as well as it has been, and that's fine. And me, we're both like this on this podcast. I'll be buzzing to be proved wrong. Seriously, I'd love it if this time next year we'd done an Aston Villa, right? And we're sitting in 5th, and whatever happens, and we're getting Europe again this season for next or not. And we're playing much more attacking football. I don't really give a stuff about possession, but like our shots on goal stats are better, and it's generally more exciting. And you're going, "Oh, do you remember what you were saying I'll be like, yeah, mate, yeah, hands up. But I personally just don't think that will happen. And if it goes the way I think it's going to, where's the patience going to be, mate? All these people, not you, but the more vocal ones, the more head in the sand, not appreciating any of the nuance of the argument. All of those people won't be there going, oh, yeah, calm down, everyone. Come on, look, there's a project here. We're moving in the right direction. Because A, that's not the nature of the majority of, or not majority, that's the wrong word, but a large part of our fan base anyway. And B, a project, mate, and requires more than just one man in the dugout. We don't live in the Harry Redknapp era or the Brian Clough era anymore. Like, that's on-field success, and particularly, and this is what it boils down to for me, the combination that West Ham, or that a lot of the sort of angry West Ham fans at the moment want, the ones who want Moyes out, the combination they're looking for is a combination of, like, you know, more attacking, entertaining football, or attacking football, basically, combined with the results we've had, requires far more than a simple change in the dugout. It requires a proper professional setup behind the scenes. And who among us West Ham fans, Moyes in or Moyes out, can sit there and say, yeah, we're a really well-run club and David Moyes is dragging us underneath the level we should be punching at? No one can say that. The reality is David Moyes papers over lots of the cracks that are there because of the way the club is run and the way the club is set up. He might not do it in a way that people like, and that is becoming apparent that he clearly doesn't. But I think that there's more managers out there who those cracks will be exposed than there are that will paper over them like David Moyes does. And I just think the more fans I listen to, not just the angry ones who don't appreciate, but the ones who genuinely think it through, and I know think a lot about football, I just think that what they're after requires a far more professionally and better set up football club than we've got, than ours. Do you know what I mean?
100%
And that's not changing anytime soon.
100% agree with you on the view that, yeah, the club isn't run in a way that would allow us to go from one level to the next seamlessly, in the way that many fans are calling for. I think one thing that is overlooked quite a lot in this Moyes in, Moyes out debate is that those on the Moyes outside, it's not just sick of not winning football matches every week. It's the fact that people are paying money to go and watch the other team play football at the moment.
Yeah,
we're not paying our money to go and watch West Ham play. We're going to turn out to watch Nottingham Forest play. I mean, but turning out to play with Sheffield United and Bournemouth. Like, what's the point?
Watch them have the ball, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. But then when you consider the type of players that we've got in that squad, the likes of Mohamed Kudus, the likes of Jared Bowen, I know Piquet is injured, but when he's fit, there's a squad there that it's not limited to these players. It's not a squad of the same level as Sheffield United, where you could probably understand if they just let the other team have the ball all the time. Like, we've got a squad there that's cost £500 million to put together, and some, and we're still playing a style of football that almost prefers not to have the ball. Now, that has been effective. It has been effective, and you can almost go, "Oh, okay, we'll let it slide because we are winning football matches and we are playing well. We're playing in a way that is getting results." But the moment that style of football stops getting results for a prolonged period of time, a la 7 weeks into the new year, you start going, "Well, you either change the style of football, Dave, or you get out you leave because there's something's not working." And if you're unwilling to change what's not working, then someone has to come in with fresh ideas and try and get the squad to play football, because the squad has cost too much money for it to just sit back and soak up pressure and play on the counter attack and still not get results. If it was getting results, I think people would go, let it slide, and go, right, fine. But we're not getting results anymore. That ship sailed. It's not happening.
Well, yeah, in a very short space of time, to be fair, isn't it? Like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. But what you refer to is what, 6 weeks? Basically this year.
Well, I think this though, it's been 6 weeks where we've not got a result whatsoever. But let's have it right. Last season, there were large parts of last season where it's the exact same thing. We were having this conversation
just this season. You can just pick a time where it wasn't working.
We were having this very conversation about Moyes' future just before the World Cup, during the World Cup break, and we were having a moan at why hasn't the club made a decision, because we're in a relegation battle here. Okay, we went and won a trophy. We stayed up. We won a trophy later on that season.
It's quite a big thing to shrug off, isn't it?
But this isn't like the first blip we've had in the last 2 years. But this is the first one where it's gone, okay, well, this is ridiculous now, because we were 6th at the end of the year. We're now on the verge of dropping out the top 10. We've completely flunked the January window where we had an opportunity to really consolidate our position in the top 7 in the Premier League. We failed that miserably, to the point where it's going to cost us probably a place in Europe next year. And quite rightly, the fans are asking questions and they're going, well, what are you doing? What are you playing at?
But it does appear like that right now, right? But yeah, I don't know. That's not guaranteed, is it? And the thing is with David Moyes football, right, is that the way it looks, it makes you feel that, I just think it makes every single win he gets, or not every single one, the majority of wins that David Moyes teams get, you feel like, I don't know, you sort of feel like they were a fluke, or not a fluke, but just like you feel they were fortunate, all of them. And I think the nature of it as well is that every loss always feels like it's been coming for ages, even if it comes on the back of as is what's happened, right? That, I just think it's the nature of David Moyes' ball, in that we were top of the Premier League form campaign. We've beaten Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, Tottenham, and Brighton this season. Brighton obviously doesn't seem that impressive, but because we haven't beaten them for more than a decade before that. And I'm sorry, but that is a direct result of playing a David Moyes awkward style of football. Because let's have it right. Oh, God, that was a James Jonesism there. I'd never ever say that. You just planted it in my head. But let's have it right. I might as well double down on it. We don't do that. We don't do that if we try and go toe to toe with those teams, right? I know people are like, Ange Postecoglou, what a legend, what a hero. Look what he's done to Tottenham. Tottenham are, not going to finish any higher this year, are they, than they typically ever have. But I'm not underestimating the feel-good factor he's brought into the club. Definitely not, right? They are operating at a higher level, so I won't have it when West Ham fans compare us to Tottenham and go, well, they're doing it, why can't we? Not having it. Completely different financial level. But I would. Is that the sort of thing that you would like? Like, is it an Ange thing? Because I don't sort of begrudge that.
I think there's this misconception that the fans that want a different style of football are fans that want an Ange Postecoglou type tactics, or 1970s Brazil tiki taka. It's not what we're calling for. I don't think that's what any fan's calling for. There might be one or two that really want us to start going toe to toe with these clubs. But I think all the fans are asking for, it's just a more progressive, intentful type of style of football. Yes, okay, against the bigger teams, you're going to sit back a little bit. You're going to hold off. You're going to try and play on the counter. But then,
because that's the way to beat them, isn't it?
But that's the way to beat those teams when you've, But when you're coming up against Bournemouth at home and Sheffield United away and Nottingham Forest away, you can still play a more front foot style of play without having to be, like a high line and all the rest of it. You can still play a positive style of football without going gung ho. That's all the fans are looking for. They want to go out there and they want to watch a West Ham United team try and win a game of football by playing football. If you know what I mean. That's all we want. We don't want to see tiki taka. It'd be nice, but we're not going to get that. It's pretty realistic. But what we can realistically hope for is just a more positive style of football. Like just play football. And we're not seeing the team play football.
No, quite. I do understand that. I appreciate that. Where I think that comes from, and I sort of get it. I think the problem is, I feel like I understand pretty well the David Moyes approach, not just on the pitch, but like generally, right? And that's why I just sort of feel it's not sustainable anymore. I kind of wish it was, and that the fans would get behind the team a bit more. But I know there's loads more to it than that. Like a lot of it's a stadium. Like a lot of the blame for me still lies at the feet of the owners anyway. And I think it's just the nature of our club now that we just have to get used to. But I think, for example, with what you just said there, right? I think David Moyes and most teams, he plays the style of play he does all the time because it's probably a bit of an ask, and I know what you're going to say, oh, the professional footballers, they should know, but like the reality of it is, it's probably a bit of an ask to sort of say to players, play like this one week, play like this the next, right? Because they're probably doing different things, different styles, week in, week out, blah, blah, blah. That's why Manchester City play the way they do every single week. When Stoke were in the Premier League, they played the way they did every single week. And I would imagine, again, I know it's easy for fans to say they're professional footballers, but I'd imagine the reason that managers tend to stick with the same style most of the time is because it's easier to drill into the players and they get better results and more consistent results when they do, right? So can you really think of a team? Right, and this is sort of a question I've been asking to people recently. Can you think of a team with the similar budget and similar club setup quality to West Ham who have continually achieved the sort of results we are, what I would call the punching above the weight that we've had under David Moyes, i.e. 3 seasons in a row in Europe and, top 6 or 7 finishes fairly regularly with the odd blip in there, playing a more attractive style of football than we have, like sustained. Because it's easy to point at Villa this season, but what were Villa doing 2 seasons ago when we were in the Europa League the first time on the way to the semi-finals? What were they doing then? Brighton's thing has taken over 15 years to build the backroom staff and all that, whereby the template is the impressive thing about Brighton, and the appropriate manager that their elite level scouting department picks out from wherever in the world just plugs in because they're right for the system that works. Telling me West Ham have got that sort of system, that sort of high level analysis, that sort of high level recruitment. I'm just wondering if you can see or have an example of a team or who have, achieved the similar sorts of levels of surprising success as a club size of West Ham, playing a bit more of a more attractive brand of football, whatever.
Well, the only one that really springs to mind, and I'm not counting the year they won the title because it doesn't really count, but the Leicester, I think, obviously they've gone down since. But see that year after they won the title when Ranieri was sacked and they finished like 14th or something. But after that, they ended up finishing 5th like 3 years running or something. Bottled 4th a couple of times when they should have got there. And then it all fell apart, partly because of a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes with the owner and stuff like that. So, which is unfortunate. But That's a more recent example. I can't remember off the top of my head anyone else, but I don't particularly buy into the idea that and it's the argument that you get a lot of neutrals staying at West Ham at the moment is that be careful what you wish for and all that. It's like, well, that you're telling me that there isn't a manager out there who's willing to take this job, right, and who can get us playing a nicer brand of football and still ensure that the club is still relatively successful at this level. Now,
Yeah,
I don't think for a moment that I'm not even expecting for a moment that a new manager is going to come in and he's going to get us back up to competing in sixth every single year, and he's going to win us a European trophy or he's going to win us silverware all the time. That's not going to happen. It'd be nice if it does. It's possible. We see it's possible. We saw David Moyes do it with a lesser attractive style of football, so it is possible. But there has to be a manager out there that can get us competing consistently at what is our level, which is what the finances are ninth in the Premier League. So if you just say, but on average, we're floating around 8th or 9th constantly, that means you've still got an opportunity.
Not for club setup, though. Like budget.
Not for club setup, budget-wise. But as long as we're knocking about in that area of the league table, then you've got an opportunity. You've always got an opportunity to break into a top 7, finish top 7, and get into Europe. Yeah, I don't think it's impossible for that to happen. I can't imagine. You can't tell me that, we'll get management to play better football means that we're going to be worse off. I think with the squad of players that we've got, yes, the setup and the way that runs club has to the way the clubs run has to change. It has to improve massively. I mean, I'm seeing reports this afternoon that Tim Steaton's already thinking of leaving in the summer because he's unhappy about the way the club's being run. He's only been out for 6 months, and he's already thinking of doing one. I know there are those tenuous links with Liverpool, which is probably turning his head a little bit if they're true. But the fact you've got a geezer that's come in, and in 6 months, 7 months is already like, well, I'm sick of this already. I'm out. Like, is damning really for the way that the clubs run. But you said Brighton earlier. You said Brighton has taken 10, 15 years to get there. They're still playing a nice brand of football and managing to knock about in the top 8. Not from nowhere, no. But they're proof that you can play a nice brand of football.
They didn't just decide at the end of one season that the fans didn't like the style of play to just click their fingers and start doing something else the season afterwards.
It's going to take time. I don't think fans are expecting it to just carry on the way it was and us to continue being competing in the top 6.
They are, mate.
Maybe some are.
Patience. You can't tell me
maybe some
everyone
are.
will be all right if we drop in the bottom half again. It'd be the same loudmouth clowns. It's like slagging off. It's ridiculous.
The fact is, by the time a change is made, we will be in the bottom half of the Premier League. That's a fact. We're not going to finish in the top 10 this year.
It's not a fact, is it?
I don't see us finishing in the top 10 this year. Like we're going to be in the bottom half of the table once the change is made. And so if we do end up in the top half, it'd be a bonus. I just like Brighton are proof. Yeah, okay, it didn't happen overnight. Brighton are proof that you can play a nice style of football and still win football matches in the Premier League. There seems to be this myth that you can only win games in the Premier League if you're not a top 6 club, if you don't play attractive football.
No, that's not true. That's not what I'm saying.
That's what it feels like.
It doesn't come from nowhere. Like you can't.
Of course, it doesn't go from nowhere.
Tony Bloom is like a genuine. Like I'm not saying a genius because of what he's like an actual genius, like mathematical genius, right? Become a multimillionaire, borderline billionaire, maybe, like off maths and stats and that sort of thing. Like insanely clever bloke, right? David Sullivan, millionaire, clearly a bright geezer, like porn baron. Like a little bit of a different sort of background, to be fair, and it's not too much of a leap to suggest that the manner in which he's run the club over his tenure, kind of reflects that, right? As we can see, you see it at Man United now, billions of pounds coming through the door. in revenue over a long period of time. If the people at the top aren't running it properly, it becomes a shambles and a circus. Manchester City, loads of money, definitely state-backed, I get all that, but it's spent properly. Like, they spend it in the right areas. And and that's what I'm saying, right? That is what I'm saying. We're still left with the same people running the club all the time, whose capabilities are limited, right? They are responsible as much as, they appointed David Moyes. They spent the money required to bring in all the players that we've got, the Lucas Paquetas, the Kuduses, the Bowens, the Soufals, the Součeks, all the people who've been integral in all of our successes. They spent all the money and brought that in, so they have to be given credit for the Conference League final win and all the success the last few years too. But what we've seen the past few years is punching above the weight that owners like ours, combined with, and the way the club is subsequently set up, combined with our budget, which is only ever going to be so much whilst we've got this set up, we've been punching above our weight. And I know you can't just throw away the fact, when you go, oh, Brighton do it, so can we. You can't throw away and just willfully ignore everything it took and takes Brighton to be there. Like, it's just silly. Like, Villa were chaos until recently, and it's easy to just go, Villa are doing it this season. But it's like, yeah, but that might we don't know that's sustainable, do we? Unai Emery, great appointment, right? Absolutely brilliant. And of course, you'd have loved to have given him a shake at West Ham, wouldn't you? But ultimately, we don't. Villa were nowhere 2 years ago when we started on this journey. You don't know. Look, if they're still there in 3 years' time, great. Case in point, and perhaps you could use them, the club, as a sort of a yardstick against which to measure ourselves, or something to aim for, to strive for. But Monchi, the technical director there, has basically just been given an open purse and free rein to do whatever he likes by the Villa owners, along with Unai Emery. David Moyes hasn't had that. And West Ham's owners have been burnt by the Pellegrini situation before. I honestly, mate, I do think it's unsustainable now. But I think the reason I'm sort of so like passionate about it, or whatever, like we all are, is I just think, knowing the club and the setup that's there, we just haven't got what it takes. We'll make a change, and I just see it going back to the gloomy, dark years. And I'm not saying that, and like, you should think that too, so stop moaning. It's not like that. I just feel a general sadness about it. And I think the crux, you mentioned something earlier, I didn't want to interrupt, I know that's unlike me, but you said, you want to see exciting football and your team on the ball. And I agree, right? We all pay our money to go and be excited ultimately, yeah? And that's fine. And I think the difference between me and a lot of people I spoke to, including you, who, I don't think, oh, what's wrong with you? But I think the difference is, for me, regardless really of the brand of football, having watched West Ham for so long, getting to go to a Europa League game that my beloved West Ham are playing in, let alone like knockout Europa League games and away games in Europe and all that sort of thing, that is the most exciting thing I've ever come across in my life. So, for as long as we can cling on to that, because I still think that's what we've been doing, right? Under David Moyes, we've been clinging on to where we are. And for all the things I said before about punching up above our weight, I think it's very much we've been clinging on. Like, we wouldn't be in the Europe again this year if it wasn't for squeezing through and the great Europa Conference League win. Top 6, 7 finishes are probably like the best we can hope for. And I just really, I'll be really sad to go back to the bleak old days, mate, when the most interesting thing about the season was if you beat Tottenham away or not. We're still going to go out all the cups like we normally do, the domestic cups, the big teams. And if there's no European football either, especially in that stadium, mate, it's not the same anymore. I don't love West Ham as much as I used to. I was proper falling out of love with West Ham and generally, the experience and all that, until David Moyes come back. And, I just really, the club hasn't changed that much behind the scenes from what it was like before David Moyes, and you saw the crap that we was overseen and got served up to us paying fans then. And I just don't want to go back to that, mate. And again, I don't, not worth arguing. And I can't escape that's what will happen. And it just makes me sad. I just think it's a shame. I just think it's rubbish, really. I just think it's proper rubbish. Because the problem ultimately isn't David Moyes, really, is it? It's like, it's the people upstairs. And that's all it will go back to next season, won't it? Moaning about the board again.
Yeah. I mean, someone said that to me on Twitter yesterday or this morning. Just said, a change has got to be made in the dugout, but that still doesn't hide the fact that the real problem at the football club remains the owners. David Sullivan is the main problem at the club that something needs to happen there. We're always led to believe that there's a takeover on the horizon and he's going to finally sell up. But until that happens, it's going to be the same thing. The club is going to work in cycles, and every club does work in cycles. Ours are probably a lot shorter cycles than other clubs. We're coming to the end of a cycle, the most successful cycle in our lifetime, I believe. And it will just be okay. Well, what's the next cycle bring? And yes, okay, if we drop back into mediocrity, then for a period, then that's what's going to happen. I don't think you're a million miles off. But I think what I find the most sad about this whole thing is that David Moyes' legacy. Now, I've said this on Twitter. I think it is time for a change. You've said it; it's not sustainable anymore. I think it is time for a change. But it saddens me that man's legacy is on the verge of being tainted somewhat by the way that this is ending for him. What that man's done for our football club over the last 4 years has been nothing short of a miracle for me.
Yeah, it's been a miracle, definitely.
We never saw it coming. He rocked up at the end of 2019, going into 2020 with us 1 point above the bottom three. We were all worried. We all go scratching our heads going, why we brought him back? He saved us, and then he's done what he's done. Technically against all the odds. He's given us some of the greatest memories we will take to our graves. That night in Lyon, the night in Prague, the 4 days we had in Prague, all those Europa League nights at London Stadium. And it saddens me that there are fans out there that almost are disregarding that and just going, like, almost hating the guy for it. I don't hate David. How you can hate the man just because it's coming to the end of his time at the club, because he's stopped winning games, his tactics are no longer effective. That happens. Like, okay, it's time for a change. His time's up. He can't take us any further. But where he has taken us is to a place that we did not think was possible. We didn't think it was possible 5 years ago. We definitely didn't think it was possible under the club's current ownership. And he's made it possible. So therefore, the man is a hero to me, and I will always love the bloke. It saddens me that his time is coming to an end. But he'll always be, in my eyes, he'll be a legend in my eyes. Some people might see that a little bit too far, but for me, he's a legend, and I'll always love him and always have a hell of a lot of respect for what he's done for this football club. It's just sad that it's ending the way it is.
Amen, Jonesy. Yeah. And the fact that you even had to put "in my eyes" on the end of David Moyes is a legend at West Ham is just sad in itself. Right. Well, that was a long intro. I mean, we've had a couple of, 51 minutes. To be fair, my microphone appears to be on its last legs, and perhaps it's a metaphor. Moyes the microphone and cut out a couple of times during that, but 50 odd minutes for the intro. I think, as sometimes is the way with me and James Jones, that is probably going to be the lion's share of the pod. Very sorry, by the way, to having promised an opposition view last week. I couldn't find a Nottingham Forest fan willing to come on for love nor money. I think they must have heard about James Jones' irrational hatred for them that developed after we played them a season or two ago. And there's been an embargo on appearing on the We Are West Ham podcast among all Forest fans. So, yeah, very, very sorry for promising one, not turning up. But I've got a bit of a decent one for Brentford up my sleeve this week. Can't tell you who it is yet, but I promise I'm going to try my hardest to actually have an opposition view after saying I will later on in the week. Jonesy, people, yeah, tell you, do us a favour. Such was the passion in your final sign off on the David Moyes conversation. Then, by the way, also sorry to those who thought me and Jonesy had a pact and about not doing Moyes in or Moyes out and only listen to this podcast for that. That one went out the window as well. Can you tell everyone, James, where they can get us on social media, please, and do the housekeeping? Because I'm a bit tired.
Yeah, I'm a bit tired as well, mate. You just throw me into it. So, where can you find us? You can find us on Twitter at We Are West Ham Pod.
No, absolutely wrong. Wrong on the first one.
See, I don't do this. This isn't my job. I just post on social medias. I don't look at what we're called.
You don't even listen, and B, the worst thing is that rolling along the screen at the bottom that we're both looking at.
It. I'll read it. I'll read it. So you can follow us on Twitter at We Are _West Ham. Don't worry about Facebook because we'll actually follow us on Instagram at We Are West Ham Pod. Also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I think that's still a thing. YouTube and all the other good and bad podcast platforms. You can email us at wearewesthampod@gmail.com. And is that it? Oh yes, and you can also buy us a pint. buymeacoffee.com/We Are West Ham.
There we go.
And yeah, all that money is £5 a pint. All that money only goes on beer or improving the pod to make it better for the listeners. And I think that's pretty much it.
Exactly.
Have I covered everything?
I think pretty much. Leave us a review if you fancy it. 5 stars.
Yes. I apologise. That was a complete shambles, which is kind of we're staying on trend really. West Ham have been a shambles. I've been a shambles at that, and I apologise.
Our microphones pack it up. Yeah, no, fair play, man. I did spring it on you, not your job, like you said. Yeah, there you go. James has pretty much covered all of it. Yeah, do subscribe to the YouTube channel, though. Yeah, that was. I mean, I know he said that.
What about sponsor us for our run this coming week, mate?
Well, James, I was just going to hand over to you again. I'll tell you what, we'll just do one big fat section for this podcast. We won't break it up at all. This will be intro, main body, and final thoughts. Yeah, Jonesy, you tell people what we're doing and where they can sponsor us.
Well, we are doing the London Winter Run this Sunday in aid of cancer research, and it's a 10k run around the streets of London. We'll ask
freezing
you to
cold.
Freezing cold. We're supposed to be. I don't think it will be. They call it the London Winter Run, but I think it's going to be all right. But yeah, Will asked me to do this probably about 2 months ago. I agreed and then forgot about it until about a month ago when I was like, oh my God, I've just signed up for a 10k. So that's what we've been doing. We've been training, haven't we, for the last 3 days?
4 days.
4 days. And it's come around so quickly. We haven't really given us enough time to properly train for a 10k, but we're doing all right actually. We've been comparing runs and times, and I think we're going to be absolutely fine. The adrenaline will get us through, won't it? We'll get round, yeah. Might take a few hours, but we'll be right. So we're doing that, and we're doing it for cancer research. So I will put the link to our donation page, which we're doing as a team. So our donation page, I'll put the link in the description on YouTube and on Apple, Spotify, and all the rest of it, wherever this goes. So if you can donate, we'd very much appreciate it because it's a great cause. And wish us luck because we're definitely going to need it.
yeah. James is already lining up the pints and the lunch for after that. Another excuse. I tell you what, right? Normally we sort of give you an occasion where me and James are going to meet for beers and encourage you to go at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham. If you'd like to do that, you can. But this week, if you're thinking of doing that, just go over to our socials and chip in some money for our run instead, the Cancer Research UK, to give it to charity this week. Rather than the Royal Pure James Jones Beer Fund. If you want to do both, that's lovely. Jonesy, one thing I did ask a week or two ago was, as I brought up the Love Sport Radio show again earlier today, I asked for people who've been listening to us from the beginning. I've had a few responses. Jonesy, apologies if I don't read yours out. I'm just going to get to a couple of them that I had on Instagram. Brad Stevens got in touch. Brad gets in touch a lot. We really appreciate it. He has come to me and sent me a message and said, I was listening to you guys on the radio all those years ago when I was living in Harrogate. I think Brad lives in Australia now. Robin Punter got in touch as well. Very nice message indeed from Robin. Hi, Will and James. Just finished listening to the latest pod. You asked for any long-term listeners. I used to listen to the Love Sport radio show, not live, but as the after show download. And I think I only caught the last few months before it stopped and you migrated to the current podcast. You had another hammer on, usually Tom Edwards. Tom, we've seen Tom recently. He's doing very well indeed. And Robin says you've been good enough to read out some of our messages in the past. And he prefers the new shorter format whereby you've dropped some sections and the opposition fan view is a separate pod. Yours is only one of two West Ham podcasts I listen to. I used to listen to about 4 or 5, but most of them seem quite ranty and not in line with my thoughts on the games and the team in general. Keep up the great work. Hope you enjoyed your breaks. Very nice indeed, Robin. Yeah, 2 or 3 message I got there on Insta. But yeah, a fair old smattering, I would say, Jonesy, of people who've been listening to us from the very beginning in the Love Sport Radio days, and how I would like to be signing off this podcast like we used to do the radio station, knowing the pub and a couple of pints were waiting for us. Instead, for me, it's probably a half lukewarm bowl of soup for dinner while I try and get the last few pounds off before the 10K on the weekend. Josie, anything on the actual game? I mean, one thing, Naif Aguerd, I just tweeted off the podcast account during the game because I had one of those websites just pop up that happened to have the full game on. I wish it didn't, quite frankly, that used to happen to you. And yeah, I figured probably one of us should, as we hosted a West Ham podcast together, probably one of us should watch the West Ham game, I suppose. And it was rubbish. It was rubbish. The whole thing was rubbish. One thing particularly, Naif Aguerd, I tweeted simply Craig Dawson and the little, remember the sign that meant more than when you used to do maths? Yeah. Craig Dawson, more than Naif Aguerd. That was it, really. I mean, he's just, was he 28 million quid? He's just not there, is he? He's just not at the level. And I really miss Craig. I've missed Craig since he left. It's been the same without him. Naif's just not the one. People saying Kurt Zuma looks a shadow of himself. I think Zuma and Aguerd is an awful combo. People saying Mavropanos feels hard done by. The bloke's got an absolute cast iron clanger in him every game. But Aguerd was terrible, like awful defending for Forest's first goal, just weak, positioning awful, nowhere near it. And then caught out majorly for Forest's second goal as well, losing his head, launching over. That's one thing. Calvin Phillips as well, sent off. I mean, the game is gone, really. The fact that his second one was a yellow card is just like, proof, if you needed it, that Premier League football's pants these days. But I don't know, I suppose a bit silly to do, but he just looks off the pace and not very good and not like we needed him. Have you got any thoughts on those two things or anything else to add? Oh, I'll let you do the Mikel Antonio because I just can't be bothered. I've been banging that drum for long enough.
Well, I suppose it was a surprise to see Antonio back in the squad, let alone starting.
An unpleasant surprise.
but then it wasn't a surprise to see the clip of him running one-on-one with the keeper, and then somehow finding himself running into a defender. So, mate, how have you ended up running into a defender when you're one-on-one with a keeper? But it's Michael Antonio, so of course he's done that. So there's that. No opinion on that. The Calvin Phillips thing, I've seen a lot of people go, well, he played well up until that point. I haven't watched the game, so I can't really comment on that. In terms of the 2 yellows, he's in a headlock for the first. He's pushed the player away. In my eyes, the referee's only booked him when he's been surrounded by a lot of Forest players. And then he's gone, well, I better book him here. The second one, because it's happened 4 minutes later, the first yellow's fresh in the referee's mind. More proof that Premier League referees really fail to really use common sense half the time. And if VAR was also looking at yellow cards, he probably would have gone to VAR to ask for help with that situation. But Calvin Phillips has given him a decision to make 4 minutes after being booked the first time. I think it was a 50-50 challenge. If you're going to give a foul on a Forest, it's definitely not a yellow card.
It can just be a foul, can't it?
Yeah. Like,
don't have to send him off.
I've seen people on Twitter go, yeah, well, it's just a silly challenge to make when you've just been booked. It's like, well, no, it's a 50-50 challenge. He's lost that 50-50 challenge in the eyes of the referee.
But not hurt anyone.
But he's not hurt anyone. It's not a yellow card. Just if the referee's not happy about it, just go, I've just booked you. Chill out. I will send you off next time. But he's done it. Like, it's Premier League officiating for you. You know, I don't think anyone's really surprised. No, Figueroa, it's a funny one. I think this season he's been poor. He showed glimpses last year of him being. Actually, no, he might turn out to be worth the money. I don't think he is going to turn out to be worth the money we paid for him. I wouldn't be that sad if we sold him. There have been rumours that he's unhappy anyway and wants to leave. Fine.
Right.
Fine, mate.
See ya.
When those rumours first came out, I was a bit like, oh, that's a shame, because I really think there's something about him that, you know, maybe he will improve. Now it's like, I just don't really care. Go, mate.
No.
Whatever. If you're not happy, mate, nor are we. So, ta-da. That's what I think on that situation. But I don't know. Let's have it right. The entire squad at the moment can do one. Shame we can't sell any of them now. But yeah. That's all I have to say about the Nottingham Forest game.
Mate.
Hopefully I did justice. I don't know.
No, yeah. Honestly, I summed it up adequately, and we could have stopped after in 4 minutes. It was rubbish. That was it. That was proper rubbish. Just pants. What was I going to say? Okay, right. So, are you just quickly then? If the option to you was, I know you think a change needs to be made, so fine. If the option given to you was Moyes out now, or Moyes out at the end of the season, and then we replace him with whoever then, what would you prefer? Do you want Moyes out now, or give him to the end of the season and give him a chance to finish off what he started, and sort of perhaps unite the fans and get everyone behind the players a bit more? I don't know.
Initially, I was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was like, he's got to go to the end of the season, but I don't think it's worth sacking him now. Something needs to happen quickly for us to turn this season around and for us to get back in. If we're going to finish in the top 7, something's got to change now. I don't see it changing with David Moyes at the helm, unfortunately. I think he's too stubborn with his tactics. I don't think we're going to get there. And I think we're heading towards a 13th place finish. So something needs to happen.
So Moyes out now?
Yes, that was a long way of saying Moyes out.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, fine. Yeah. Okay, I'm David Sullivan. All right, Jonesy, heard you on the podcast this week. Moisey listens as well, to be fair, Jonesy. So that's going to upset
Sorry, Dave.
him.
I love you.
We do love you. That is important to note. David Sullivan on the phone. All right, Jonesy, heard you on the podcast this week, as always. Left you 5 stars under a pseudonym on Apple Podcasts and chipped in to buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham. Ignore the fact that I've only chipped in a £5, even though I'm worth like 1.3 billion quid or whatever. Yeah, heard you on the pod. So you wanted Moyes out. What shall I do between now and the end of the season then? Do I appoint the successor now, get a caretaker? If so, who am I getting, please?
Well, first of all, Dave, why on earth are you asking me? You're the one who owns the club. Don't ask me.
No, but no,
I'm football manager. Like, I'm just a fan on the street. I pay my money for you to make the right. I pay my money for you to make the right decision. Don't ask me what.
You know, look, you're a smart bloke, James.
This is why we are, Dave, because you can't make decisions for yourself.
So you're telling me I shouldn't listen to fans then?
Just
fair enough.
Right.
I'll keep Moyesy then. I'll keep Moyesy.
Do what's right, Dave.
Cheers. If you're going to act like this, Jonesy, I won't phone you for advice in future.
No. This is the thing, though, Dave. I'm going to call you Dave now, Will. This is the thing now, Dave, is that it shouldn't take a load of West Ham fans to tell you that it's not working any longer under David Moyes.
No, but I'm not listening to I'm just asking you.
You should be able to see it for yourself. A change needs to be made, mate. You got to make it. You've got to make a decision. Yeah. And if you want to stick with him, that's down to you. That's down to you. But I think it's time for a new man.
So you basically, Josie, you can't sort of back up your big words on your podcast. Now the owner's called you, and I'm asking you what you think I should do. Ask for a bit of help and advice. You're just throwing it back in my face, getting leery. Nothing, just all words, no action. Big mouth, no trousers, or whatever the saying is.
That's so right. I mean, you'd be a bit annoyed. I'm going to use my restaurant analogy again. You'd be a bit annoyed if you walked into a restaurant, pay for your meal, and they ask you to cook it. Come on, like I'm paying my money for you to make right decisions at the football club. So therefore, on a serious note.
Hang on, I've cancelled your season ticket. Bye. Boo. Yeah. Well, you've upset the owner there, Jonesy. Nice one.
He's done me a favour. So, on a serious note,
you don't know, though, do you?
I've seen. Initially, I didn't know. Someone asked me on Twitter, "Okay, well, who would you have?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't really know. All I know is that a change needs to be made because it's going stale very, very quickly." But I've seen over the last 2 days links to Lopetegui, and that does interest me a little bit. I think he was doing a half decent job at Wolves, left in the summer just before the season started due to a disagreement with the owners over transfers, I think. Which makes me think, well, probably wouldn't get on well at West Ham, would he, to be fair? But I think he's a good manager. I wouldn't mind Lopetegui to come in. I think he plays a nicer brand of football. I'm not saying he's...
Does he? How do you know that?
I think, well, because he's a well-known manager.
Spanish!
But yeah, I don't know. That interests me because he was doing a good job at Wolves last season. Gary O'Neill's gone in and built on that. So yeah, maybe if apparently he wants to come to West Ham, he turned down the Palace job because he wants to come to West Ham. You got a manager like that going, "Oh yeah, I want to come and manage your football club." Come on in, let's do it.
Good, Ed.
Why not?
Anyway, you can't start calling on people to put their money where their mouth is after the owner of West Ham just rang you and asked for your opinion, and you totally bottled it.
Yeah, but this, mate. If the owner of West Ham called me up and asked me what I was doing, I would have said exactly the same thing I just said to you. Why are you asking me? You're the one that's...
You'd have gone, can I have a couple of seats in the posh seats, please, Dave? It was really nice when I went to the Arsenal game. I really liked it. Well, so basically you haven't got a clue. What about Noble or Nolan till the end of the season, as a couple more comical Twitter accounts have suggested? Everyone determined to shoehorn Mark Noble into a manager, even though he's said for years that he wants to be in a directorial position.
Yeah, I don't think that is a viable option. We know that the players absolutely love Kevin Nolan. If it's Kevin Nolan to the end of the season, maybe he gets something out of the players, but I'm not convinced, if I'm honest, mate. I'm not convinced. Again, as another guy, I love him. He's a great captain for us, and he has been a really good member of the coaching staff with Moyes. But no, and Mark Noble, obviously not. Like, come on, like obviously not. So
I think Jenny saw a thing earlier for a PR company. I think he's like it's a second favourite with the bookies or something ridiculous.
It's just lazy, isn't it? It's lazy.
do you take, because I struggle to, I mean, people have you believe that Xabi Alonso wants to come to West Ham. People have you believe Roberto De Zerbi wants to come to West Ham. Both absolute fallacy on both fronts. One thing that I sort of feel, and this would excite me, right? But I still feel is like 80% fallacy, 20% maybe there's a chance. Thomas Tuchel, you having that one? I know he's like absolutely nosing out with Bayern Munich at the moment, but
I thought, do you know what? Funny enough, I thought that this morning when I saw Bayern Munich had lost again, they're 8 points adrift. I thought, right, he's going to get sacked. And I thought, oh, but I don't know. I really want to come to West Ham.
No, that's why I think it's 80% fallacy. I perhaps even more than that. I just wondered what you.
I did think it this morning. I thought, well, that he might be an option, and he was linked with this a while back. But no, as much as it would be, I think it would be a good appointment. No.
No, I'd love it. I think it'd be class. I really rated him at Chelsea. I liked him a lot. Well, I don't know either, frankly, because I don't really. I haven't really given it too much thought. Been pouring all my energy into futile arguments. Saying,
interesting one.
All I would ask, if there's anyone listening, all I would ask is like, I just miss the old. Do you know what I mean? West Ham, like, try and get behind the team a bit until the end of the season. I know it's hard when we're rubbish, but London Stadium's such a naff place to go when we're not doing very well. And I don't know. I just sort of miss it when some of the fans used to support the team.
Interestingly, that Palace, Roy Hodgson's left for Palace again, and they've immediately appointed Oliver Glasner, who was in charge of the Frankfurt team that beat us on their way to Europa League glory a couple of years ago. I thought actually that's quite a good appointment for Palace. To be fair,
well, I thought you were going to say let's have Hodgson.
Come on.
Oh dear. I don't know, James.
The poor bloke needs to retire. I thought it was really unfair for them to get him back out of retirement after he retired the first time. Leave him alone, Palace. So he's finally escaped the clutches of Crystal Palace. Good on you, Rory.
Yeah.
Get on a beach somewhere. Get yourself on a cruise. Come on.
Yeah. Well played, mate. Well played. I reckon we'll have him in. He did a decent job, Palace, to be fair, the end of the season, didn't he? Last season, little firefight. He just went in and was like, just like go all out attack, lads. But I'm not bothered. I don't want a job next season. Just go all out attack. That's what they did. Scored a few goals. Maybe we do need him to the end of the year. Look, I think that's about it, James. 1 minute 15. Sorry, 1 hour 15. A decent little podcast there, I think, mate. Actually,
good luck.
On the whole, quite enjoyable. I was in a proper couldn't be bothered when we started.
It's cheered me up.
Yeah. We've had a laugh, haven't we? I'm looking forward to seeing you on Sunday, mate. 10K run. Me and James doing native cancer research. UK, the London winter run. It's going to be cold. Me and James are far from athletic specimens, so 10K will be a fair old feat for both of us to drag our short, stumpy little bodies around. Well, James less so these days, to be fair. He's a new man these days, but it'll be quite the achievement. So if you fancy chipping in a few quids for a good cause, Cancer Research UK, as James said, he'll post all that stuff up on our socials somewhere, and you'll be able to find it. And chip in a few quid if you fancy it. West Ham were rubbish again. We got Brentford this weekend. I'll try and have a decent opposition view for you ahead of that game. Try and keep your heads up, though. Moyes in or Moyes out, whichever side of the fence you sit on. And we find out, James, I think Friday, who we've got in the Europa League last 16. That's exciting. And I think we should go, whatever happens, because it might be the last chance we ever get to see West Ham away in Europe in our lifetimes. Thanks for listening, everyone. Follow us on socials like James did an absolute dog's dinner of telling you where you can find all our profiles earlier on. Twitter at @WeAre_West Ham's the main one. Instagram, We Are West Ham Pod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and buy us a pint. No, don't buy us a pint this week. Chip in to our 10k sponsorship fund for this weekend. Leave us a review if you like and get in touch. Thanks to those of you who've been listening from the beginning, the Love Sport Radio days 5 years ago. Thanks to those of you who perhaps this is your first episode ever. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy all the podcasts. I'll speak to you later on this week with a very good Brentford guest. And me and James will be back, hopefully legs still intact, after our charity run on the weekend next week.